So before I go into any more detail, just a little bit of information about me. I've got very little here, really. A fairly recent photograph.
在做介绍之前呢，我首先介绍一下我自己。这个内容呢不算长，然后这张照片呢也是我最近拍的。
So I think you could say I'm in the golden years of my professional life. I've been living in Spain for 30 years now, and I've been working as a coach for 20 years. I've been working as a consultant for 20 years, and as a coach for probably about 18 years now.
我想我现在正处于我人生中的黄金期。我在西班牙已经住了30年了，然后我大概有20年的咨询从业经验，然后大概做教练呢也有18年的时间了。
And as a supervisor, I did my first training in Ashridge in 2000. I completed it in 2012.
我呢是关于督导的话，我是在2002年的时候呢完成了第一次的督导培训。
So
是他呀，那不是这个那儿，他就是他呀。
Is that a question or?
Ivy 把那个麦关一下。
So, shall I continue?
Yeah, you can continue.
And I'm also I'm a member with the EMCC for a number of years, and I also work with the global accreditation team, and I'm also on the global supervision focus group, which I didn't write here, which I should have done.
我呢已经是在很多年了，我是 EMCC 的会员，然后同时也是 EMCC 全球认证组的成员，同时也是 EMCC 督导工作组的成员。
And part of the presentation today, I will be sharing, and this is new, I will be sharing you some of the guidelines that we have been working on, and they have now been published in a beautiful document.
今天呢，也会跟大家分享到，就我们 EMCC 制定的关于督导的准则，然后它目前呢这个准则已经出版了。
So we'll move away from me, and we'll now talk about the aims of today's webinar.
好，现在让我们来看看今天我们要讲的内容。
So I would like to take away the mystery for you about supervision, and as I said now, to share the EMCC guidelines to help you think about how you can introduce supervision into your practice as mentors.
今天呢，我将向大家揭开督导的神秘面纱，就像我刚才说的，我今天要跟大家分享一下 EMCC 的准则，然后帮助大家思考如何将督导纳入你的导师实践中。
Okay, so before we start, I'm going to try and see how this works with a poll, but I'm going to ask you to answer these questions and share these with the poll. So these are the questions that are on the poll, and I will just share them with you now. And this will just give me some idea of your own experience of supervision. And if you don't have supervision experience, that's absolutely fine. I'd rather you be very honest about it, or if you've had some kind of partial experience, it'd be very interesting to know.
现在呢，开始之前我会跟大家做一个调查，然后这个调查呢，大家就是关于这几个问题，我是希望通过这几个问题，然后了解一下大家目前关于督导的了解程度，你们是否有过接受督导的经验？就如果没有的话也没关系，因为我也希望大家就是诚实的面对这些问题。
So I'm going to see how this works. I'm going to stop sharing because I don't think having a presentation and doing a poll works at the same time. So I'm going to stop sharing and start the poll. So
现在我会暂停那个屏幕分享，然后我们来做一下这个调查。
Okay, so here it goes. All right. So do you have it? Has that gone to you? Do you have it?
Yes. 大家屏幕前是不是出现了一个问卷调查 然后大家可以在上面做选择回答问题。
So I'll leave you a few minutes to answer those questions. If you can write it in English, that would be good. If you can't, then IC will try and translate.
Louise, about the poll, about the answers, the choice 1, choice 2.
Yeah, just just put down, just write down. Well, it should be. I thought there was a space for you to answer. Then, so there isn't a choice. So I haven't done this very well.
Actually, it isn't a choice. It is a question.
It's not a choice. So maybe we can just answer them in the chat then. Maybe you can just answer them in the chat. So can you answer the questions in the chat? But you can see the questions anyway.
大家看见问题的话，可以把那个答案写在聊天框里。因为这里不好做选择，大家直接把答案写在聊天框里就好了。
So the question, what type of supervision do you receive? So whether that's peer or informal, or where does it happen? Is it virtual? Is it face to face? And what's the main reason that you receive supervision?
关于你接受何种督导，这个督导可能是说，比如说你们可能是同行同辈之间进行的督导，或者是非正式的，可能是线上的，或者是面对面的这样。
And then there's the final one, which is who offers the supervision.
最后就是后面你介绍督导的原因是什么，以及有谁提供的督导，可以在那个聊天框里打出来。教练督导也算的，教练督导也算的。
So yes, we have one yes. Okay. Okay. Okay, fantastic. So some people, okay, fantastic. So I see perhaps you can translate what Danny's put.
Yes, she has received supervision before, and it was delivered by Felicia.
Okay, Felicia, of course, fantastic. Yes, because so Felicia and I work together on the focus group.
Yeah.
麻烦那个，请你分一下。
好 ，it is it is the supervision is for her to get the ACM, the accreditation.
Yes. Okay, exactly.
So, yeah.
Exactly. Okay, so I don't know if we're going to get any more answers, but I think I'll end this now because I think. Okay, so all right. All right. So, okay. So from what I can see, that there's a little bit of experience, but not an awful lot. So that's what I wanted to know. So, so let me just go back to the. All right. So, all right. So. If you have any questions, then please, if you would like to raise your hand, or I'll ask if you've got any questions, because I want this to be as participative as possible, and with the number of people today present, I think that's possible. So,
大家如果有问题的话，中间可以自己举手来提问。我们希望今天的讲座呢，也是就是呈现大家可以多互动，多互动。
Thank you. So here is the EMC's definition for supervision. And I'd like to say it's very simple, and it took us a long time to make it simple. We had a lot more in the definition before.
这个是 EMCC 全球对督导的定义。这个定义呢，看起来非常简洁，但其实我们也 花了很长的时间来让让这个定义呢尽量简洁。
So this means that every word has a lot of weight. It's been thought.
所以这里面，所以每一个词它其实都是很有分量的。
So it's a safe space for reflective dialogue with a practicing supervisor supporting the supervisee's practice, development, and well-being.
督导呢是被督导者与督导展开反思性对话的安全空间，在这个空间里，督导向被督导者提供实践、发展和幸福感方面的支持。
And we will go into all of this now during the presentation.
我们后面呢会详细的展开。
So, what is the purpose of supervision?
那督导的目的是什么呢？
First of all, it's to ensure that the supervisee maintains appropriate professional standards.
第一个是确保被督导者的实践符合既定的职业标准。
So this is what you might read about in certain books as being normative, where we look at standards of practice, we look at the ethical questions, whether there are conflicts of interest, things to make it sort of looking at sort of almost the legal side. And some people would say this is where the supervisor might take on the role of somebody more in a kind of a police role, although I think that's a little bit harsh. But it's to make sure that the standards of a professional practice are maintained.
大家可能在很多书里也看到过，就是说你的行为要就符合标准，我们会可能涉及到你的实践要符合标准，然后可能涉及到一些道德方面的问题，可能包括利益冲突、一些法律上的问题。那有人他会把可能督导形容成一个警察，我觉得这个形容可能有一点说过于严肃了。但不管怎样，他督导的目的呢，也是确保被督导者的实践要符合标准。
But what I also want to say is because of the relationship between the supervisor and supervisee, where it's much more based on a relationship of equality, the relationship means that it's very much a helping approach. So it's not, you're wrong or right. It's something to help you grow here. So it's very important. It's a caring relationship.
这里就关于到督导和被督导者之间的关系，他们之间的关系呢是形成良性的关系。那他们之间呢是督导还有帮助被督导者，这里呢是存在的是两者之间呢是一种有一方对另一方的关怀，它并不是说关乎到是非问题。
Thank you. Second part is to facilitate the development of the supervisee's professional practice. So this is all about learning, improving, growing, developing new skills, becoming more and more competent in what you're doing as a coach or mentor.
第二点呢，是为了促进被督导者的职业发展。那在这个发展过程当中，主要就是关于到被督导者他的学习、进步、成长，以及培养出新的技能，以及在对自己所做的事业、所做的实践能力不断的得到提升。
Thank you. And then the final arm of supervision is for well-being, to provide support for the supervisee's well-being. And of course, during the last couple of years, with people's work and lives being completely disrupted, this has been a very important part and one of the important reasons why people have been going to supervision.
第三个呢是督导为被督导者的幸福感，就是他的健康提供支持，特别是在过去几年，大家的生活节奏都被打乱了，然后在这种特殊的时期呢，就是作为导师或者教练接受督导呢，变得尤为重要。
Thank you. So here's a lot more detail, and this is what I'm going to. So it looks a full slide, and we won't take it all in one in one bite, as it were. I'll go through the parts so that we can reflect on them.
这个呢是关于什么是督导，所以看起来可能内容有点多，但我们现在来一一细看。
So, as I said before, it's a safe space. So this means it's where we have obviously a pact of confidence. We feel safe. We feel at ease. And when we feel at ease, we can then reflect on much more than the specific client cases. It's where you're able to go through a lot of these different things that are in this list.
所以督导呢，首先它是一个安全空间，在这样的安全空间里呢，它能够让你放松下来，然后能够思考更多的问题，而不只说局限于你的关于客户的案例。在这样的空间里呢，你能够就是思考很多不同的内容。
So first one I've put here, we have discuss ethical dilemmas, and I'm sure we all have questions, things that we might have a little, what we call in English, a niggle inside ourselves, where there's something not quite right about the way things are happening. It could be conflict of interest. It could be all sorts of things which have an ethical element to them that we can talk about.
那首先呢，是关于我们可以讨论道德困境，因为大家可能或多或少的都会遇到很多关于可能涉及到道德方面的问题，可能关于是非啊，关于利益冲突啊这些问题。
Where we are able to reflect on our personal strengths, the things that we do well. Maybe we use them too much. Maybe we find that we're actually using always the same kind of methods because we do that well. And look at our own development areas within the range of our professional competencies.
第二个呢，是在这样的空间里呢，你可以也对自己的优势做反思，因为你在某些方面可能做得特别好，但你可能在这方面可能过多的利用了你的优势，然后比如说你可能重复使用的某种方法。另外呢，就是在你的职业能力范围内，然后反思自己可以发展的领域。
Where we receive support to maintain well-being and psychological health. And so, as I mentioned before, especially over the past years, but how is it that we're managing our time? How is it that we're allowing ourselves to be fit for purpose, to be fit to work in the professional way that we aspire to?
第三点呢，是要获得支持，然后维持我们的幸福感跟心理健康。就像我刚才提的，在过去几年里，我们可能承受了很多，然后关于如何管理自己的时间，就如何可能保持健康，然后能够做好我们的工作，然后实现自己的目标。
Where we're able to address more general themes in relationship to the development of our competence, our capacity. Capacity is about how we relate to people around us and who we are, our clients, and our professional identity.
然后是我们可以讨论一些更广泛的主题，可能比如说能力的提升，比如包括我们如何与人交往，我们与客户如何打交道，以及关于我们的职业身份发展。
This could be in particular maybe where we're feeling nervous about something or fearful about something, where we don't necessarily feel we have the confidence that we should have. These are the kind of areas that we might talk about in this area under this heading.
比如说我们可能对某些方面我们感到可能非常的紧张，感到非常的恐惧，那我们如何就是说从更加自信更加从容的可以来看待这些问题。
I particularly like the way this is described as from the balcony, where we maintain a sense of perspective, viewing our practice from above, from the balcony. We look down and we look at the big picture.
然后是从阳台视角，就是说从更宏观的视角，然后来审视我们自己的实践。
And we also can talk about our own development, where we want to go, the next steps in our professional practice, to explore the direction in which the supervisee wishes to develop their role and professional role.
作为督导呢，也可以就是帮助被督导者去探索你的下一步的方向，你的职业实践方向，你的职业方向，包括你比如说下一步想做什么，你想提升的方面。
And finally, we have here to develop the skills as a reflective practitioner, where we actually learn to stop and rather than being in action mode doing, we learn how to be and to really ponder without judgment, but just to look at it in a deep way and see where these reflections lead us to.
最后呢，是可以培养反思实践的能力。反思实践也就是说，我们在学习的过程当中呢，能够适当的停下来，去仔细的对自己的实践做一些思考，然后在思考的过程当中呢，能够不带任何评判、主观意识的去思考，而且思考呢，要是做深度的思考。
Thank you. Okay, so why is supervision so important?
督导为什么这么重要呢？
So we start off here as the first heading is where we left off just now. So it's about reflective practice. So I have these 5 areas here. So I'm giving you the headings now, and then we're going into more detail after this particular slide. I'll take each one separately.
主要有5个方面，然后这个呢是5个方面5个标题，后面呢我们会细细的来讲。
Okay. So second, we have professionalization. Third, we have accreditation. Fourth, for our professional assurance. So that is actually for the whole of the profession of coaching. And then finally, ethics and inclusivity, which is a very difficult word to pronounce even in English.
那首先是就我刚才讲的反思性实践。第二个呢是职业化，第三个是认证，第四个是职业保障，第5个是道德和包容性。
Thank you. So we're going to reflective practice. I tried to describe a little bit before, but so this is what we have written here. First and foremost, supervision is a form of facilitated reflective practice. It is a reflective dialogue that is designed to ensure we are all delivering our best work in the service of our clients, their organizations, and all stakeholders.
反思性实践，首先，因为督导它是一种促进反思的实践，就通过反思性对话呢，可以确保就我们为客户所在的组织和所有利益相关者提供最好的服务。
I think the key word that we need to look at here is dialogue. And dialogue is where it's an interchange between one or more, but where we suspend judgment and where we're able to really speak out what's going on for us without having a fear that we're going to look silly or have shame. So we're really looking at it in a very equal way, and where we're able to unpick all the elements of what is being presented.
对，这里呢一个关键词呢是对话。这个对话呢，它也可以是1对1，也可以是1对多的。然后在这个对话过程当中呢，它是没有任何评判的意味，主要是聚焦于就是你们在做可能导师实践当中发生了什么。然后在这个过程中呢，也不要怕自己可能说一些可能比较傻的话，就是也不要害怕可能出丑之类的，因为在这个过程当中呢，大家都是平等的，主要目的也是说挖出你就关于你实践内容的所有要素。
So it's very important in order for this dialogue to take place that there is a peace and a calm in the environment. So that's why I shared that first photograph with you. But we need to make sure that we, as a supervisor, we enable that space. and that everybody feels comfortable. So often at the beginning of a session, we will actually ask people to maybe stop, do some breathing, get rid of things that are worrying them. We say, what do you need to let go of today to be fully present here? This is the kind of things that we do to make this dialogue possible.
所以非常重要的一点呢，是说，就是作为督导非常重要的一点是能够创造一个空间，这个空间呢是能够让被督导者他能够彻底平静下来进行对话的空间，能让他感觉到非常的舒适。在这个空间里呢，督导能够让被督导者就是停下来，可以让他慢慢的停下来，可以让他做一些深呼吸，然后让他去不要担心任何的事情，就抛下，可以问他，就是说现在如果然后让你抛弃一些比如说什么样的杂念，所以能够让你就是完全的沉浸在这场对话当中，就是说以这样的对话开始，然后这样呢可以就是对这样的对话呢可以更好的能促进你们的后面的一些你们后面的交流。
Thank you. Oops. Yes, and here I share the learning cycle, and this is what happens when we learn based on David Kolb's work. And I wonder how many of you have seen this. This is a very well-known model. But if you see in the learning cycle, the first thing we have at the top is that we have an experience.
这个呢是学习签理论，它是大卫库珀提出来的。我不知道大家有没有听说过这个模型，因为这个模型它是非常的出名。在这个模型里面头，第一点呢是关于经验。
So the experience is what we bring to the supervision, and there we have this space. And so that's the second part in learning is we reflect, we think about, we ponder over what's happened. So in this non-judgmental space.
这个经验呢，也是你就要是你要在督导过程当中，你要带给督导的内容是经验。然后第二个呢是反思，就是对你要静下来，就是不带任何评判的，然后对你的之前的这个经验做出反思。
And so once we've reflected, we then begin to have understanding. We're actually able to sort of draw up some kind of concepts. This is where we are maybe being a little bit more analytical. And from then, from having that, seeing that understanding, we can then maybe take that understanding and try something out and have another go, or take what we've been reflecting on, and that will actually influence how we do things in a different way afterwards.
然后在反思之后呢是理解，就是你从你这个理解的过程当中呢，比如说你能提取一些概念性的东西，然后比如说在这个过程当中你对它进行了分析，然后得出了一些可能结论，然后依照这个结论呢，你开始去在这个基础上去做实践，去试一试，这样呢可能会对你就是之后的可能方式会带来很大的影响，你可能会以不同的方式再继续实践。
Thank you. And so for those of you who have come across and worked with the learning cycle before, will recognize that each one of these little boxes represents a favorite learning style. And each one of us has a preference for how we learn. This is not about the learning cycle, so I'm not going to spend more time here, but it is really important to actually understand what your preferred way of learning is. Because there are some people that, automatically prefer to reflect, whereas there are others that are more analytical and prefer to look at the detail, and others who like to have a go. But this is what happens as we go through the learning cycle. And for those who have not seen this before, just think about something that's happened and just think about what you have been doing in your mind to actually gain experience or learn from that incident.
在这个学习圈里面呢，它的每一步其实都是对应了不同的学习风格，就因为我们每个人都有自己的学习风格， 就是在这里呢，我们最重要的一点呢，主要是理解你不同的一个学习方式。然后有的人可能会比如说在学习过程当中可能是比较倾向于可能是分析型的，那有的人呢就是愿意直接去尝试。在这里我主要想强调的就是大家就是平时要思考对于发生过的事情进行思考，回想一下你是怎么做的，也就是从你的经验当中然后提取，然后知道从你的经验当中来学习，然后为后面的实践做指导。
Thank you. So now we'll go back to the 5 points. So we talked about professionalization. So this is what has been defined by the EMCC. So globalization brings challenges that highlight the importance of supervision. As the definitions of practice areas like leadership, coaching, team coaching, mentoring, supervision, and organization development shift between languages, cultures, industries, geographies, and develop over time, the value of supervision increases, reinforcing a professional approach around the world.
第3点重要性呢是职业化，因为全球化带来的挑战呢凸显了督导的重要性。因为随着领导力、教练、团队教练、导师、督导和组织发展这些领域的定义，它随着时间可能在不同的语言、文化、行业和地理之间的变换，它的发展，然后在这过程当中呢，督导的价值呢也越加的凸显，然后在全球范围内呢也强化了这样的职业路径。
Thank you. So this means that we're all working to the same standards everywhere, or we are aspiring to work to the same standards everywhere.
所以呢，这也是说我们就是可能希望大家就能够就全球化，大家在实践的时候呢都能够遵从统一的标准。
And of course, one way of achieving the same standards, working towards the same standards, is working towards accreditation. So accreditation is a recognition for our professional practice once we're qualified, once we've finished our training.
要就是遵从统一，达成这样统一的标准呢，其中一个方法就是要获得认证。认证呢也是对我们专业实践的认证，主要是在你完成一定的培训以后就取得这个认证。
So accreditation supports and regulates an individual's ongoing professional practice and provides a focus for their ongoing development. And a commitment to supervision is a requirement for accreditation as a practitioner.
认证呢，它可以就支持和并规范个人的持续职业实践，也为他的持续发展呢指引一个方向。如果你要获得从业者认证的话，也必须要做出督导承诺。
As somebody who actually works in the accreditation team, I hear a lot of people who are surprised about the amount of work that goes into accreditation.
就因为我在那个我是认证团队的成员，所以也经常就是收到大家的提问，大家比较问的多的是，就是要获得认证，可能要比如说下多大的功夫。
But what it is actually a celebration for all that we have achieved professionally. So we are asked to look at different aspects of our practice, and we have to document them.
所以，因为要获得认证呢是一件非常可喜可贺的事情。然后，这个呢要涉及很多不同的方面，我们也制定了相应的文件来做出了这样的规范。
And for those people that do a program, train with a program that has an EQA, well, this comes as part of the program. But you get your accreditation after you've achieved a number of hours of practice after your certification.
那我们比如说也有EQA 的认证项目，为完成这个项目的认证呢，你也需要花出很多的小时数，然后做实践，然后才能获得这样的认证。
But it's very important, and as I said, it's a celebration of what we achieve, and we go on learning, because once you've been accredited, you have to go on and renew it. So it's a continuous journey.
但这个认证呢，它也是一个持续的过程。就即便你就是获得认证以后呢，你可能后面还在经过一段的时间内，你可能还要再继续获得这个认证。
And of course, supervision is a part of this, but it's something there to help, not because it's sort of something you have to do. Well, you have to do it, but it's because once you start having supervision, you realize the importance. And to be quite honest, I couldn't be happy as a practitioner if I didn't have my supervision.
督导呢，在这个过程当中也起到了非常重要的作用，因为它在这里呢，主要也是起到一个非常帮助的作用。
Thank you. So the next heading is professional assurance. So EMCC Global believes that supervision is a requirement for professional practice and a means by which practitioners can ensure that they are acting with responsibility and accountability. So that's
EMCC 全球，它也指出，督导是对职业实践提出的要求，也是从业者确保自身以负责任的态度行事的一种方式。
Thank you. So this is really where it's like the safety net, where in order to be professional and to have the professionalization that we are working towards set standards globally. So this is the mechanism, one of the mechanisms by which we can, guarantee that this is happening.
因为这个呢，它督导呢，这也是意味着相当于一个安全网，因为我们的目标主要是呢，在全球范围内达成统一的标准，这呢也是形成一种机制，然后形成对职业的保障。
Thank you. And then the final point is around ethics and inclusivity, which is, as I said before, difficult even for me to pronounce. So EMCC Global adopts an integrated approach. The supervision framework, the global code of ethics, and the diversity and inclusion declaration sit alongside the other resources that contribute to the awareness of the supervisor, whose role includes supporting the supervisee to maintain high ethical standards in their practice and maintain an inclusive mindset and approach.
EMCC 全球呢也采用了比较综合性的方法，有督导框架、全球道德准则，还有多样性包容声明。然后这些呢跟其他资源呢就是一起，他们主要有助于提高督导的意识，然后明确自己的职责呢是帮助被督导者在实践中保持较高的道德标准，同时呢也能以包容性的心态和方法实践。
Thank you. And of course, this is so important. And for me, I work across a lot of different cultures, and it's really important for me to reflect on what my values are and how maybe my supervisee or the people I'm working with or my client, if I'm working in coaching or mentoring, how their values are different, and to actually understand that and to really and to check out what is healthy and what is inclusive, so that there is no exclusion, and that we don't have clashes and we don't have things like conflicts of interest, for example.
这点呢也非常的重要。就拿我自己举例，因为我自己一直是在跨文化的环境中工作的，因为我也经常会思考，就我自己的价值观是怎样的，然后我的学员，就我的客户，他们的价值观又是怎样的？因为我们要理解并尊重不同的文化差异，然后能确保就是创造一个比较健康的包容性的环境，然后这样呢也可以避免存在冲突，可能像利益冲突之类的。
Thank you. So I thought it might be, maybe before I go any further, are there any questions that people might have at this point? Maybe I'll just stop
大家现在就是在讲后面的内容之前，大家有没有什么问题想问的？
Because I know there's been a lot of information. I just wonder if anybody has any questions.
刚刚因为刚刚讲了很多，然后看到大家可以现在有问题可以提问。
Michelle, Ivy, Joy, Danny, Jack, anyone of you have any questions?
暂时还没有问题。
Okay.
暂时还没有问题。
Okay, good. Okay. Okay, so Louise, thank you. If there's no question, maybe we can just continue. Otherwise, if they have any question, you can just raise their hand.
Okay, perfect. All right.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right, so I thought it would be useful to reflect upon how we need to be a supervisee, because there's a lot talking about what happens in supervision, but how is it we can prepare ourselves as we go into a supervision relationship?
Yeah, actually, this might be a very good topic for our people here, because actually we do have a lot of people attending EMCC training as a mentor, and after their training, they have to receive this supervision service. I mean, that's a requirement for EMCC. And then in many cases, people don't know how to be a supervisee.
Exactly.
I think this is very valuable.
It's very important.
Yeah. 就今天就是路易斯老师呢，就讲的就这个话题里面呢，就我们正好来 EMCC 的它的要求里面呢，你要去申请这 EMCC 认证的过程中间呢，你需要有一个基础的被督导的这个服务时间。那我们很多朋友在被督导的过程中间呢，他并不知道如何做一名被督导者。OK， 所以今天的 topic 非常重要。谢谢 ，Thank you，Thank you, Louise. Yeah.
All right, and as you can see, I'm quoting Eric DeHaan because in his books he writes a lot about this, and in fact, his very first book is about how to be a supervisee. So these are some of the points that he highlights, but you know, I think this is it's very well written, and these so I'm just using his information.
我们刚才因为讲了很多关于什么是督导，但是没有讲过就是如何做一名督导者，就是你在接受督导之前要有什么样的准备。那 Eric 迪涵呢，他写了很多书关于督导的书，就他写的第一本书就是如何做一名被督导者，然后他呢也有很多的观点，我觉得非常棒的，所以在这里跟大家分享。
Thank you. So first of all, wake up and step out of your comfort zone. So be sort of alert and be prepared to learn, which usually means stepping out of our zones of comfort.
第一点就是大家醒醒吧，走出你的舒适区。所以这个呢，就是说大家要准备好去学习新的东西。
It's really important that when you're bringing your cases, bringing your questions, that you don't just bring the facts, but you also bring the feelings, what you've observed, the little things, which are all important.
在你接受督导的时候呢，你并不只是说只把你的，比如说你的实践案例啊，你的问题带给督导。就除了这些分享事实以外呢，同时呢，你也是把在督导面前展示你自己的你的感受、你的观察。
Thank you. So be prepared to be creative, looking at your accounts, the stories that you bring through new eyes, putting a different order and restructuring them.
要有创造力，用新的视角来看待你讲述的内容，把它重新整理、重新建构。
We look without judgment, but we look critically at the facts. All right, we look at them all, the different things. We question them. We look at our actions, what we've done, and those of our clients, and what has happened as a result of those actions, and what, if any, metaphors occur when you're sharing your story.
然后呢是要带有批判性的眼光去审视你带来的一些事实，你自己的行为，你客户的行为，以及这些行为所造成的后果，以及包括你在分享一些故事的时候，可能它背后的寓意是怎样的。
Thank you. To be open to other points of view. Listen well to any interruptions, interpretations from other people if you're working in a group.
对其他观点呢也持开放性的态度，可能在你们一个就是工作小组里面，其他成员可能他们会打断你，或者说有其他解释，对于这些点也要认真的去听。
It's very important to be able to share your doubts, admit when we're stuck or puzzled. A lot of people are using the expression in English now. I'm very curious. And this is where you are. You're puzzled about something. But you share your vulnerability.
然后呢，是你要能够分享出你的疑惑。就当你陷入困境或者感到困惑的时候呢，你也能够去勇敢的去承认。然后你可能经常会，比如说在英语里的表述就是我可能对一些东西对什么感到好奇呀，感到困惑啊，同时呢也要能够展现出你的脆弱。
Thank you. And be prepared to choose the consequences of your new insights and allow your practice to change accordingly.
然后对你可能会产生新的见解，然后对你新见解带来的结果呢，自己可以去做一个选择，然后呢并相应改变你的实践方式。
Thank you. I've just written an article in Spanish. It's available on LinkedIn. You can probably find me on LinkedIn. And I think probably with translation, you just press the button for translate and you can probably read it in Chinese. But in this article, I share what I have learned from supervision. It's the title of the article. And I share some examples of things that I have learned. And a lot of them have been around me being vulnerable. One of them was around some feedback I received. Other was about how to approach a client. But of course, I have supervision continuously, so I'm continuing to learn. And so it's about, as I said to you before, really looking forward to it, looking forward to having that time to just to sort of share and just find other people's opinions and just to get a deeper understanding of what's going on for you or for me.
我呢写了一篇文章，这篇文章我发布在 LinkedIn 上，是法语的，但是大家可以就是有那个翻译的功能，大家可以直接通过翻译的功能，然后通过中文查看。因为我在这篇文章里面呢，也分享了很多我就是从督导然后像学习到的很多东西，比如说我里面有很多的事例，就关于我学到了什么，比如说在督导过程当中，我愿意去展示自己的脆弱，我比如说接受到的一些反馈，以及如何该面对客户。然后因为在这个我呢也经常也接受了很多的督导，因为这个呢也是让我不断学习的过程，就是大家要一直保有一种期待的态度，就自己期待去分享自己的故事，然后呢对自己所做的事情呢做一个深度的思考。
Thank you. So, as I've mentioned before, and I asked the question, what kinds of supervision are there?
像我开头的时候大家也问过这个问题，像督导类型有哪些呢？
Thank you. So, individual, which is where it's very much like your mentoring relationship, your coaching relationship, where you work with one person and you have a relationship with that person over, one can work for a long time with the same supervisor. It might be that you say after a certain time, I would like to change, but it's like an ongoing relationship.
首先呢是个人督导，这在个人督导这个关系呢有点像导师跟学员或者教练跟学员的关系一样，它是 可能在很长的一段时间里，你都是接受同一个人的督导，所以后面你们的关系可能会发生改变，但是在这个过程当中呢，是持续的。
And then group supervision with a qualified supervisor, where normally the groups are between 6 and 8, it could be less, but where you work with the group, and so everybody contributes.
第二个呢是团体督导，它是由一名合格督导进行的。这个团体它可能有比如说6到8个人，或者说更少。然后在这个里面呢，是对每一个被督导者他都就会贡献出自己的故事。
And then it could be you have peer supervision where you work in a group where there's not a person qualified as a supervisor, but where you share your cases and you learn in an informal way.
第三种呢，它是关于同行督导。这个同行督导它是一种非正式的。好，在这样的督导里呢，大家可能在一起就是分享自己的案例，然后是以一种非正式的方式在学习。
Whether it's with a qualified supervisor or with a group of peers, it's important that you find some processes to follow so that there is a structure and so it's to make sure that it's a safe place.
就不管是团体督导呢，还是说非正式的督导，就最重要的是大家要遵循一个过程，也就是说要遵循一定的结构，然后在这个框架里面，然后要有一个安全的空间，然后接受督导。
Thank you. So now I'd like to just share one of the approaches to supervision, which is very famous, the 7 modes or the 7 Is. And this has been developed by Peter Hawkins. When he developed it, he was working with a Bath consultancy group.
现在呢，我要给大家分享一个关于督导一个非常出名、非常常见的一个模型。这个模型呢，可能是比如说督导的7只眼或者督导的7个模式。这个是彼得霍金斯然后设计的一个模型。
So I'm going to describe the 7 modes after this slide, but just want to help you here with, if you see if you see the diagram, we've got the supervisor, we've got the mentor, who's the supervisee, and we're talking about the client of the mentor. So of course we've got 3 different worlds that are coming together, 3 different protagonists, and this I'm talking about. It could be either individual or in group. In group, you probably need to have could add another I, or supervision of supervision as well as another I. But this is the basic one.
这里呢在这张图里面呢有3个角色，那上面呢是督导，然后下面是导师，导师呢也是被督导者，然后呢是督导跟导师呢在一起讨论客户。
So we've got, first of all, if we look at number 1, we have the client who is receiving the mentee. So those would be the people that you're working with as your clients. So there are a whole load of issues about what's happening for the client, what is the client working on.
首先第一个呢是客户，客户呢也就是大家作为导师接触的学员。客户呢主要是关注他可能遇到了一些问题，他可能在他身上发生了一些什么事情。
And then we've got the person who's having supervision, the mentor, or the keep going back, the mentor, the supervisee here. So of course, what's going on for the mentor, what's happening in the mentor's world at that time.
然后第二个呢是导师，就是作为被督导者，导师在他身上发生了什么。
Thank you. And then we have the supervisor. So the mentor, supervisee is working with the supervisor, and they're talking about what's going on for the client. But of course, we've got the supervisor, what's going on with the supervisor, what's happening for the supervisor at the time of the supervision.
然后第三个呢是督导，就除了督导跟导师之间讨论关于客户的事情呢，我这里也关注督导在督导身上发生了什么。
And then we've got the bigger world, the sort of the context, the system that they are working in, which is outside, which is the seven.
然后最后一个就是外面的圈，它是在一个就是说更大的一个背景之下，一个更大的系统里，看这里面发生了什么。
So I'll take each one now separately, but as you can see, there's quite a lot of implications, quite a lot of things that could be sort of drawing our attention, that it's something that's niggling us that that we're questioning.
这里我后面呢我会一一讲，然后大家看这个图里面，这里面就有很多东西，然后有很多关联性的东西在里面。
Okay, so as I said to you, the first I, or the first mode, is the mentee and their context. What does the mentee work on? What's happening for them in their life or their organization?
所以第一个呢，第一只眼睛就第一个模式，它是关于学员及学员的及他和他的背景，就是关于学员他发生了什么，他可能生活里或者说在工作中他遇到什么事情。
So the second mode, or the second I, is what are the tools that the mentor uses in the mentoring? You know, what is it that he's doing? What is she doing? Is he asking questions? Is he bringing something to an exercise to work on? This is you know, what is it that the mentor is doing in the practice with the mentee?
第二个呢是导师他使用的工具，就是他在面对学员的时候，他做了一些什么，比如说他可能问了哪些问题，然后可能与学员又做了哪些练习。
Then another very important part to be looking at, another aspect that we can look at, is the relationship between the mentor and the mentee. What's happening between them as they're working together? What is noticed?
第三点呢是非常重要的一点，是导师跟学员之间的关系，就是他们之间他们发生了什么，然后从中有可能觉察到了什么。
And then the fourth I is the mentor's own experience. What is the mentor noticing that's happening inside themselves, in their mind or in their body, as they're working with their mentee, or it could be actually what they're going through when they're in the supervision as well. So, but what do they notice? Are they feeling anxious? Are they under pressure? Do they notice that they're adopting a behavior that maybe is similar to the mentees?
第四个呢是关于导师他自己的经验，就导师他自己注意到可能自己比如说自己的身体，可能自己的心理可能发生了什么变化，这个不管是在面对客户的时候还是在面对督导的时候，他的感受他的心理状态是怎样的，他是不是说感觉到最近很焦虑，说感受到了压力，包括他自己的行为是不是受到了学员的影响。
Another I, which is a very powerful I, is the relationship. What's happening between the mentor and the supervisor in the supervision?
第五个呢是关于导师跟督导之间的关系，就是在导师跟督导之间有没有发生什么。
What we often find is that what might be happening between the mentor and the mentee is reflected in the relationship between of the mentor and the supervisor.
因为在我可能做督导经历当中，然后发现就是在导师跟督导之间，他们会可能经常思考的一个问题是关于导师跟学员之间的问题之间的关系。
We call that parallel process.
我们称之为一个并联过程。
And it's something that happens very frequently and is often a clue to something else that needs to be attended to.
这个呢是非常常见的事情，然后也是关于可能要注意到一些其他方面的问题。
I number 6 is what does the supervisor notice as in the here and now when they're working in the supervision?
那第6个呢是督导，他在做督导的过程当中，就是在可能此地此刻他的感受跟觉察。
And then the final I is, as I said before, the wider system. What's happening there? One of the fantastic questions that often provides a clue is, what does the system or what does the universe need from this case right now?
然后最后一个呢是最后一只眼是关于更广泛的系统跟背景。然后在这个时候呢，也经常比如说有一个关联的问题，就是说比如说在这个背景这个系统，现在它需要什么？
Thank you. So if I just go back to the diagram again, we can really see what I was talking about. So the client being the mentor, the I number 1, what's happening there? What is the client bringing? How are they feeling? What's happening for them in their lives?
所以现在再来看这张图，就是对于我刚才讲的内容，大家可能有一个更清晰的了解。首先，比如说第一点，客户他在导师面前他带来了什么问题，他的感受怎样的，他就是在他身上有什么事情发生了。
Thank you. And again, number 2 is the tools that are being used, the sort of the intervention, so the structure of the mentoring and the content of the mentoring.
然后第二个就是说导师，因为导师现在他干预进来了，他在这个干预过程当中，他使用了什么工具？
And here again is the number. So is the relationship between the two, and this is my cursor seems to have disappeared. There we go. So what happens in this relationship is reflected in this relationship, and this is what I was talking about as being the parallel process.
第3点呢，就是导师跟客户之间的关系。然后这个他们导师跟客户之间的关系呢，也是在督导过程中经常讨论到的，所以也是我为什么说这是一个并行的过程。
Okay. And okay, so we've got the mentor, important to think or reflect on what's going on for them in the here and now, and then the supervisor, what's going on for them in the here and now.
然后导师呢跟督导呢，他们都会去思考，就在此时此刻他们此时此刻发生了什么。
And then the wider picture here, 7.
还有第7个呢，就是在这个更大的一个系统内一个背景。
So this is one model that we use. It's particularly good when we're working in groups, because then each member of the group can be paying attention to one of the different I's.
这个模型呢，经常是我们在比如说跟一群人就是团体督导的时候经常会用到的，因为在这个团体里的每一个成员呢，他都会关注到聚焦其中一只眼睛。
Or in individual, we might say, well, which of the I's is really speaking out loudest, or which do I feel is needing attention?
在做个人督导的时候呢，就是说这个哪一只眼睛，然后在你的这个督导过程当中会更突出，然后我们会把更多的注意力放在哪一只眼睛上。
So this might seem a little bit complex, but once you get used to it and you're using it regularly, it fits into place.
现在看起来可能有点复杂，但是当你真的在用的时候，你可能就会对它有个更清晰的了解。
But of course, there are many other different models, and the idea is that we can choose and we can use different sort of approaches in the supervision.
当然呢，也有很多其他不同的模型，然后呢，我们也可以使用不同的方法。
but yeah, so this is my last slide. So as you can see, and I think what I'd like you to do is just to have a look at the picture.
最后一张呢是个图片，然后希望大家来仔细的观察一下这张图片。
Because probably individually, you don't see everything, but as you can see, there are lots of different figures. So when we choose and when we share that with a group or with another person, we see a lot more.
当我们自己看的时候，我们可能能看到很多的，比如说图片、图像。但是如果当你把这张图跟别人分享的时候呢，我们能看到更多。
So that's the end of my presentation, and I'm very conscious of the fact that there's been a lot of information there. So now I'd like to offer the space for any questions, comments, feedback that you'd like to share.
以上呢，今天就是我的分享。然后现在呢，时间我想交给大家，如果有什么问题可以提问，或者大家给予一些反馈。
好，大家有问题吗 ？Any questions？ 大家有问题吗？有问题可以提出来。就今天就咱们的 Louise 老师跟大家分享的，大家有哪些收获，或者是有哪些问题？
我来做一个分享或提个问题。如果说我们在认证前就听到这个课的话，再去做认证前的一些督导，可能效果会更好。这是我想表达的第一个观点。先翻译吧。
I have several points to share. The first one is if we had such a webinar before we apply for the accreditation as ACM, I think it would be better for us.
另外的话呢，就是有个问题，关于这个七只眼。我看到这个七只眼的这个里面，这个督导跟 mentor 之间，就是 supervisor 跟督导之间只有一个关系，它有没有什么就像 mentor 跟这个 client 一样的，他们之间是不是还应该有什么工具，还是应该有什么方法？这个之间还就是没有链接，就是只有一个关系，这显得我们现在作为被督导者来说，感觉到有一点欠缺，这是我的一个问题，就是在这个地方怎么去理解。
Second, my question is about the 7 Is.
Yes.
It's mainly about the relationship between the supervisor and the mentor. Yeah, I noticed that there is only one line about the relationship between the supervisor and the mentor. But perhaps there is a shortage of methods and the tools between them, just like the mentor, the tool between mentor and mentee.
No, I think I probably forgot to put the arrow. I mean, it's two-way. You look at both ways with the relationship between the mentor and the supervisor. It's about noticing. Probably the supervisor would be the one to comment what they are sensing in the moment, and that's quite important. Where you notice that maybe the supervisee is speaking fast, or that they're using some particular type of language. I can remember a case where I was working with a group, and I was talking about a case. My client was an air conditioning company, and I had a reflection on the fact that it appeared that my client saw everything through the eyes of an air conditioning company. It was like putting in machinery and leaving it.
Putting the machinery and leaving it?
Sorry. The metaphor was being used as a machine. I was bringing a case to my supervisor, and and then somebody in the group, it was a group supervision, said, it sounds to me as if your client treats everything as if it's a piece of equipment that needs to be installed. It was quite an eye-opening, the fact that that was the way they approached everything, and there wasn't much human, much feeling for people.
在这个就是在导师跟在督导跟导师的他们的关系之间呢，就非常重要的一点就是督导他在这个过程当中呢，他会对自己的一些感觉做出评价，比如说可能这个导师就是被督导者他说话可能语速比较快了，然后他可能会，然后这个督导呢他可能才会从语言上然后介入跟他提这个事情。然后就像我之前比如说也在做过一些督导，然后我是做的是那个团体督导，然后我当时呢也是就是面对我的客户的时候呢，我也提交了一个案例，比如说我之前有一个客户，他们是一个空调公司，空调他们是个空调公司，然后他们当时呢就是然后我这个小组里的成员啊，他们当时就可能给了我一句反馈，然后说就是你的这个客户他们可能特别像一个机器，然后这个机器他们可能想要比如说所有的零件他们都想安装在里面，就是这是一个比喻，主要的意思呢是就是希望你能够就是打开你的视野，然后去做在这个实践过程当中能够打开自己的视野。
So that came from the way I was speaking, my whole behaviors, and so that impacted the supervisor. It was a group supervision, so everybody was able to sort of make an observation. But that was what was sensed. So she sensed what had been going on for me, and the message I was giving to everybody else.
然后呢，当时我的自己的也是通过自己的可能行为啊，一些说的话语，然后就是影响到小组里的每一个人，然后他们呢也会对我的这个行为话语做出观察，然后给予反馈。
So it helped me realize that my client, that was their culture. And so of course that had impacts on how everybody was living and how everybody was treated in the organization.
那这个呢也是就是让我就是思考，然后就是如何面对我的客户，然后在面对他们是如何去怎样的去对待每一个人，去对待每一个客户。
Thank you. And so it made me think about my approach, how I would then go back and work with them in a way. Well, I mean, to understand. It was really for me to understand the situation.
这个呢也是帮助我能够更好理解此时这个情境的方式，然后让我知道如何更好的与我的客户接触。
Thank you. I hope I've managed to answer the question. It's when you're actually in the situation and then you realize what's going on. I mean, you talk about it, then it becomes powerful.
就当你遇到一种情境、某种情况的时候，如果你真的能够意识到这种情况，并把它讨论出来、分享出来，这是效果是非常棒的。
Thank you. Any other questions?
Michelle? Yeah.
Yes, this is Michelle. Louise, thank you very much to refresh my memory on the 7I model. It's been quite a year and a half when I really get the learning what I have a question that go back to the slides, previous slide you use the word designed supervisor. That design means
designated. So
yeah,
yes. So that means somebody who's got a qualification.
Qualification. Okay, I just want to confirm.
Yes.
So
Michelle 稍等一下，Michelle come on. Let's IC do the translations. So okay.
Okay. 对不起。
Michelle 你可以自己就是。
或者Michelle你自己再用中文讲一下，让其他人也听到。OK。
好的，等我反一下。我刚才我说的是说非常感谢 Louise 去帮我，就是又能想起这个模型，因为我在接受培训的时候是有过这个模型， 刚才问了一个问题，他有一个词哈，在前边 PPT 里边提到了一个，就是一个designated supervisor， 这个是什么意思？那实际上他刚才解释是说是一个有就是被认证过的 supervisor。我接下来要问的问题是说peer supervision， 怎么样做会是一个 effective， 就是有效的peer supervision。Louise, my second question actually related to peer supervision. I have a relationship with one of my classmates. We keep on doing the peer supervision. I'm just wondering, how can I, can we ensure this peer supervision is effective?
So to really question yourselves each time, and you probably need to find, so there are a number of books on the market. Unfortunately, I don't know how many there are in Chinese, where they have different processes, and it's to really review quite objectively each time what your learning has been, and maybe to choose different approaches. There are different ways, different exercises that you could use. And to be rigorous in, and make sure you put a framework around it to make sure that it is being quite rigorous, and to help you maybe look from the different eyes. So if you're familiar with the 7 eyes, then maybe that's something that you could do between the two of you, sort of take a perspective of each eye and find the questions, because there are questions to be asked from each eye point of view.
Okay, thank you very much. It's very helpful. We've sort of stopped and stacked. So right now we just decided the pause have been paused about 2 and 3 months already. So we're trying to figure out how to move forward. It's really good timing. Thank you.
I mean, maybe you could invite another couple of people and then you could rotate. I mean, it's a fantastic place to learn. And, the more sort of different eyes you have, the wider the perspective.